Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here today to announce a federal indictment against marathon bombing defendant Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. And the indictment alleges that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is responsible for the deaths of Crystal Marie Campbell, Lindsay Liu, Martin Richard, and Officer Sean Collier, and also for maiming, burning, and wounding scores of others. Today's charges reflect the serious and violent nature of the events that occurred on April 15th and the tragic series of events that followed. The defendants' alleged conduct forever changed lives. The victims, their families, and this community have shown extraordinary strength and resilience in the face of this senseless violence. And it is with the hundreds of injured, as well as the victims in this case, in mind that we proceed to seek and make sure that justice is served. Before I get into more of the specifics in the indictment, I would like to thank the hundreds of men and women in law enforcement whose hard work, dedication, and sheer perseverance brought us to this day. There are too many individuals to name and agencies to name. Some of the leaders of those agencies, though, whom I have worked with closely since the day of the bombing, stand here with me today. I also want to thank Middlesex County District Attorney Marion Ryan and Suffolk County District Attorney Dan Conley for their continued cooperation and assistance in this investigation. And District Attorney Ryan will be also announcing charges against this defendant, and you will hear from her shortly. The indictment that the grand jury returned today charges the defendant with numerous counts, among them conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction resulting in death and using a weapon of mass destruction resulting in death, conspiracy to bomb a place of public use, as well as bombing a place of public use resulting in death, conspiracy to maliciously destroy property resulting in personal injury and death, as well as maliciously destroying property resulting in personal injury and causing death, and use of a firearm during and in relation to a crime of violence, including using a firearm to cause death, carjacking resulting in serious bodily injury, and interfering with commerce by threats and violence. The indictment contains detailed factual allegations about the defendant's alleged conduct and role in the crimes that have been charged. According to the indictment, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev and his brother Tamerlan took steps before April 15th to prepare for their actions that day. Among them, on or about March 20th, the defendant and his brother traveled to a firing range in Manchester, New Hampshire, where Dzhokhar Tsarnaev rented two 9mm handguns, purchased 200 rounds of ammunition, and engaged in target practice. On or about April 5th, Tamerlan Tsarnaev ordered electronic components on the internet that could be adapted for use in making IEDs and had them shipped to the Cambridge residence that he shared with his brother Dzhokhar. The defendant also downloaded a publication that provided instructions on how to build a bomb. And the day before the bombing, the defendant opened a prepaid cell phone account number in the name of Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. According to the indictment, on April 15th at approximately 2:40 p.m., Tamerlan Tsarnaev placed a backpack in front of 671 Boylston Street, where Marathon Sports is located, among a dense crowd of marathon spectators. The backpack contained an IED constructed from a pressure cooker, low explosive powder, shrapnel, adhesive, electronic components, and other items. At the same time, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev walked to 755 Boylston Street in front of the Forum restaurant, where he also placed a backpack containing a similar kind of IED among another crowd of marathon spectators, including dozens of men, women, and children. According to the indictment, at approximately 2:48 p.m., Dzhokhar Tsarnaev called his brother using his prepaid cell phone and spoke to him for several seconds. Seconds after the call, Tamerlan Tsarnaev detonated the bomb that he had placed in front of Marathon Sports. And after that bomb exploded, among many things, it killed Crystal Marie Campbell, and it also maimed and seriously injured many others. Seconds later, after the first explosion, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev detonated the bomb that he had placed in front of the farm restaurant. And when that bomb exploded, it killed Lindsay Lou and Martin Richard, and it also maimed and seriously injured many others that were in that area. The indictment further alleges that on April 18th, a few hours after the media began disseminating photographs of the Tsarnaev brothers, identifying them as potential suspects in the Marathon bombing, Dzhokhar and Tamerlan armed themselves with 5 IEDs, a Ruger 9mm semi-automatic handgun, ammunition, a machete, and a hunting knife, and drove their Honda Civic to MIT in Cambridge. When they arrived at the school, the defendant and his brother murdered MIT police officer Sean Collier, shooting him in the head at close range with the 9mm semi-automatic handgun. They also attempted to steal his weapon. Following Officer Collier's murder, Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev carjacked an individual who is referred to in the indictment as DM, and who was in a Mercedes. And they carjacked him by pointing a gun and threatening to kill him. They indicated to the victim that they intended to drive his vehicle to Manhattan. Dzhokhar and Tamerlan forced DM to drive to Watertown, where they retrieved a portable GPS device and other items from their Honda Civic, and then forced DM to drive to a service station to get gas. While they were searching for a gas station, they drove DM to a Bank of America ATM in Watertown Square and forced him to hand over his debit card and personal identification number. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev then used this debit card and withdrew $800 from the victim's bank account. At around 12:15 a.m. on April 19th, while the defendant and his brother had stopped for gas, the victim escaped from the Mercedes and called 911. After the victim escaped, Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev drove to Laurel Street in Watertown, where police located them and tried to apprehend them. It was at this time that the Tsarnaev brothers began firing at the officers. The Tsarnaev brothers used 4 IEDs against them, one of which was made from a pressure cooker, low explosive powder, shrapnel, and other items. After attempting to shoot, bomb, and kill or disable the officers who were trying to apprehend him, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev drove directly at Watertown officers Jeffrey Puglisi, John McClellan, and John Reynolds. When Dzhokhar Tsarnaev drove at the officers, he barely missed Sergeant Jeffrey Puglisi, who was attempting to drag Tamerlan Tsarnaev to safety. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev drove over his brother Tamerlan, seriously injuring him and contributing to his death. In the course of making his escape, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev also caused Richard Donahue, a Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority officer, to sustain serious bodily injury. Tsarnaev later abandoned the car on Spruce Street in Watertown, smashing both of his cell phones, and hid in a dry-docked boat in a Watertown backyard until he was captured by the police. As a result of the charges that have been filed today, the defendant faces up to life and possibly death if convicted. I do want to say that I have met with several of those that were injured on April 15th, as well as members of the deceased families. I was able to hear their thoughts, discuss the process moving forward, and learn a bit about them personally. Their strength is extraordinary, and we will do everything that we can to pursue justice, not only on their behalf, but on behalf of all of us.